Hi, I'm Sean Reardon, Mayor of Newburyport, and welcome to the latest edition of the Mayor's Corner. All right, so we had a lot going on this week, and plus, I just got back from vacation, so I took all of last week off. I think it was the first 5 days in a row that I've ever taken off as like an actual vacation. My in-laws, we do like a house on the beach. They do a house on the beach for a week in the summer, and we've done it for I think about 5 years now, and it's usually somewhere between Salisbury and Seabrook. So each one of those times when that's happened, I've usually gone back and forth to work, so I haven't really stayed there the whole time. This year we actually stayed up in Old Orchard Beach, which back when I used to work with schools, I actually worked with their schools one summer on a couple different projects. But I had never been to like Old Orchard Beach, like where everybody goes. It was a lot of fun. So that's where we went. We were there all week. The weather was kind of hit or miss, but it was just great to kind of be able to step away a little bit. I still was, keeping in track and talking to employees throughout the week, but for the most part, I was able to disconnect, and it was a nice little break, and it gets you rejuvenated right after the 4th of July to come back and hopefully still have a productive summer. Things definitely slow down a little bit in the summer, but there's a lot of things going on that you've got to be on top of, and it's a great time to work on things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So what's going on in the city, right? So I didn't miss much last week, but this week we had a city council meeting on Monday. It was actually a pretty productive meeting, I have to say. So, you never know about that first meeting after you come back, into the new fiscal year. It was the first meeting for my new finance director, Amy Saro. She was amazing. This meeting had a lot of different transfers that needed to take place, and those usually take place at the end of the year. So we had some end of year transfers. And then transfers were just were approved in the budget, right? So in the budget, when you approve the CIP and you approve, the fiscal year budget, there are things that you can now go and do, right? And some of those things are projects. For example, money to go towards the Marquand Lane drainage project that we're going to look at in the West End in Ward 6. That being one of the things. There were some vehicles that DPW or DPS wanted to purchase. Those got approved. So things like that. So it was really, I would say, a really productive meeting. And again, I hope to work better with the City Council these last 6 months. It's an election year, so there's no guarantees who will be there this time in January. But again, we have a little less than 6 months left of this year, and I want it to be productive. So I hope to work better with them now that we've got past budget. We know what we're dealing with, and hopefully we can push forward and work on a lot of great things in the coming months. One of those things that came up in the City Council meeting was this ad hoc, and ad hocs are usually formed by the City Council. For example, we had a market landing ad hoc that was formed before I took office, but then I got to participate, and my office got to participate in those discussions around Market Landing Park, and then we actually got to go out there and find the funding and actually do the project. So Councillor Khan, the at-large councillor, approached me about an ad hoc around the water projects, and I thought it was a great idea. I think going through this rec center vote, it put a big spotlight on projects around the city, and one of them are that we have these large lists of water projects that we've been kind of methodically moving through the design process. These projects are very expensive and just to design, and then very expensive to do. And again, I credit DPS. We've got a great plan in place, and we presented that plan to the City Council in the form of the CIP. But again, those things aren't happening in a public realm, right? Like we're doing that because that's under operations, right? Those are day-to-day operations that we're working on at the city, and we're lucky to have such a dedicated staff to work on them. But Councillor Khan approached me about doing this ad hoc, and I thought it was a great idea. So this ad hoc is going to have a number of different people on it, and we're going to look at these projects a little bit more in depth to give the community really more information about how we're moving forward on these projects. And I thought it was a great idea. So this ad hoc will be made up of city councilors, it will have city staff, and it'll also have some board and commission members like the Water Sewer Commission, the Resiliency Committee, the Energy Advisory Committee. So all those different entities will have representation in this ad hoc as well. So it's going to be a pretty large ad hoc. I think it's just under 15 people. But again, I'm looking forward to getting that started. And plus, I just think it'll be a great way to educate the public a little bit more about the water projects that we do have in the pipeline and why they're important and why there's a certain sequence of how they have to be carried out for a lot of reasons. Well, but we'll get into that ad hoc. But it was great. That was another great example of working with City Council on something that's really going to be positive for the community. We have another thing that we're going to announce probably tomorrow, but we've put together an internal task force around affordability for seniors in the city. I've wanted to do this for a while, and we've kind of informally been doing it, but we kind of wanted to make it more formal. So we're forming this task force. It's going to be made up of city personnel and residents. And I think what my plan is with this, I just want to make sure we're doing everything that we can and using every tool in the tool chest to help seniors who are struggling with, aging in place here in Newburyport. I hear about this a lot. I'm at the senior center quite a bit. I'm actually going to be there this week for my lunch with the mayor, but I'm there all the time. So I get to hear from seniors on a regular basis. And I know there's just this big population of seniors that are struggling, because taxes are continue to rise. The homes that they're living in are continuing to be worth more. And how do they deal with that when you're on a fixed income, right? Because you could sell that property, but then where do you go if you want to stay in Newburyport? So things like that I want to look at. It's funny, I had a great conversation this week with someone around a co-living model that is happening in some communities in Newburyport, and I think this task force would be a great place to talk about something like that. But again, it's going to have city personnel, so we're talking about like COA director. We have like the DPS business manager is going to be on there. Some other city staff in my office will be on this task force. As far as residents, we're looking at the Friends of the COA and the COA board to have representation on this. And then my hope is once we have some action items or things that we can actually move on, again, this is going to take a lot of research, and it's going to be a lot of looking at what other communities are doing. And then when we have some things that we'd like to try to adopt here in Newburyport, we'll probably bring in a few city councilors to kind of test out what we found. And then eventually these will be presented to City Council, because anything that we do would have to get through City Council. So I'm really excited about that. Again, more info will come out tomorrow in a press release, but I'm excited for that task force, and I'm excited to work with residents on this as well. What else is going on? Another thing that will probably come out more next week, but when we were doing a lot of our DEI training over the past year with city employees, again, that's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force. We were doing this with department heads and a few other city staff, and we really had some meaningful conversations. But one of them was around language access in the community, right? And this has happened a few times at City Hall, where we've had somebody come in who doesn't speak English, and do we have the resources and the tools to be able to serve that resident in the best way that we can? So, we did think that was something that we needed to work on as a city. And one of the things that was recommended was getting these devices for city departments. They're called Pocket Talks. We actually just got them, so it was a part of this initiative that we did in last year's budget. But we got these devices that we're going to try out in a number of the resident-facing departments. Also, police and fire are great examples of where this could be useful. Again, there was a big incident down at Woodman Way recently over the past few weeks, and the people that were involved only spoke Portuguese. So something like this could help the city better communicate with residents on a regular basis. So we're excited for that. There'll be a press release about that next week, but those will be rolling out in a few different departments. So we're excited to finally get that going. What else? So I guess the last couple things I'll mention is that, well, one, I'm very excited. Lieutenant Governor Driscoll is coming to meet with me on Friday. We've had to reschedule this a couple different times, but she's coming up with a few members of her staff. I have like a list of things that I would like to talk to her about, so it's always great to catch up with her. I'm lucky to have such a great relationship with the governor and LG. I knew the LG before she was the LG. She was the mayor of Salem, but they are always so responsive, whether it be text or phone call, with any of our needs. So these kind of check-ins are also really great, because then we can really map out what we're concerned with and looking at across the board, and then we can get some guidance and some help from the LG's office. So that's happening on Friday. And then, we have a big Yankee homecoming meeting today, so I can't believe it, it's almost Yankee homecoming. So next week, Greek Food Fest is going to start by the end of the week. So that's why I'll be doing my Mayor's Corner next week. But we have the meeting today. It's between all the departments in the city and the Yankee Homecoming board, and we talk about are we ready for the week? What do you need from the city? Does everyone have their permits in? Does everyone have the details and police that they need for all these events? So it's a great meeting. We all get around one table, so that's happening today. But I can't wait to have my Yankee Homecoming preview show with you next week. And I didn't even talk about where I'm at today. So today we're at the new Knock Middle School tennis courts, all right? So when I first took office, we just had redone the 2 courts that I grew up playing on over here behind me or in front of me. We redid those courts, so that was in process, and then the work happened when I took office. And then we always wanted to complete it, right? Like the goal was always to have 5 courts, and if you don't follow tennis, and tennis has had a huge resurgence here in the city. The high school plays their home court matches at Atkinson Common. We have for years, and we've always wanted to add courts there. Atkinson Common is also one of our most beautiful parks, so it's been difficult getting support around adding more tennis courts there. And so we approached, after we did those 2 courts, we thought, well, hey, look, we've got some land here that we're not using incredibly well. This used to be a softball field like back in the 70s, and it hadn't been used for that since then. Why don't we put 3 tennis courts here? And so we got to use community preservation funds for this. We got the CPC on board with it, the city council got on board with it, and we were able to finish that project this year. And actually the boys tennis team got to play their state tournament match on these courts. So I just wanted to come down and show them off. I'm a big tennis fan, but this is just one of many projects that we've started and finished here in the city, particularly around our parks. On the other side of this building, we're just starting on the hot top area. We're putting in 2 new basketball courts there in a hot top area, and we're going to paint that and have that ready in time for school. But there's always great things going on around the city, and we wanted to highlight this today. And that's my Mayor's Corner. I hope everyone's staying cool. Again, during the week, the library's a good place to go. Senior Center, stay cool. People check on your elderly neighbors, making sure they're okay in this heat. And I will see you all next time on the Mayor's Corner.